Massive fire swept through the town, killing everyone except for 7 villagers. Those 7 lit the everlasting candle in the center of town to remember those who died. And they kept the flame alive, teaching their descendants how to make new candles from the wax of the old ones, so that the flame would live on forever. Our goal was to tell this entire story using only one extended metaphor. The idea of a literal flame being passed from one person to another. The challenge was how to take these bite-sized pieces of storytelling that we usually work with and expand them into something longer form, without losing the audience along the way. But I think we figured it out. Let me break it down for you. We begin with a change in the world. This is our first metaphorical shift. Now, if you're paying close attention, you might already be noticing what we're doing here. The fire is a metaphor for Elric's life force, or soul. When the fire spreads, it takes away his loved ones, leaving him broken and alone. And so he keeps the flame alive to honor their memory. As time passes, Elric grows older, and he trains students to carry on his teachings, but he knows he won't be around forever. So he starts making preparations for his eventual death. First, he writes down everything he knows in a book, calls it the Book of Flame and Wire, because he wants his legacy to live on after he's gone. He leaves space at the end of the book for his students to fill in with their own stories. Then he gives them a special device that will help them preserve their memories. It's basically a super advanced version of a hard drive. Elric knows that eventually he will stop beating, but his essence will live on in the data stored on the device. One day, though, visitors arrive in Elderwood who want to replace Elric's dying flame with a new one. Alright, now that we've covered the basic plot, let's talk about why it works so well as an extended metaphor. Extended metaphors are a powerful storytelling tool because they allow the author to explore complex themes and ideas in a more creative and engaging way. If you liked this story, make sure to follow for more updates. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hello, here's a story for you. Years passed after Elric's quiet disappearance, but his teachings had not faded, they had spread. Like sparks on the wind, the lessons of fire traveled from mountaintops to deep valleys, from electric cities to humble farming villages. His candle was no longer just a flame, it had become a movement. Elderwood had changed too. The old barn was now a grand hall, filled with students from every land. Its walls held maps, stories, inventions, and always, at the center, a living fire, one that never went out. But a growing faction, led by the Luma Network, wanted the teaching of Flame Band. They argued that flame was dangerous, slow, wasteful. They called it a threat to total progress. One city Voltanus passed a law banning all open flames, even candles. Inside it was a burned-out candle, a letter, and a drawing of a young girl smiling in the dark. The note read, "Greater than to whoever still believes in this. Thank you for keeping the fire alive." Every student who graduated would carry a single candle across the land and light it in a place where no flame had burned for years. Not as protest, not as pride, but as presence. Candles began appearing on rooftops in silent cities, deep caves where miners rested, at sea where fishermen honored the lost, on train platforms, in hospitals, in places where people had forgotten what soft light felt like. And in every candle, the message was the same. We still remember. I only had one candle, but it lit something in me that I don't think will ever go out. Rivi, age 11, Voltanus. Master Thomel placed the letter in the Hall of Flame. And if you want to hear another story, then check out the playlist here. I hope you find exactly what you're looking for. If you did, please leave a like, or maybe even subscribe. All these things help the channel and allow us to keep making more stories for you. And if you want to support us further, then we have some options for you. Head over to our website, or click the join button in the comments below. Thank you for listening. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. When Elderwood heard the news, there was sorrow but no panic. They had seen this before. They knew that even when fire is outlawed, its memory still burns. And the children who came to learn? They weren't just learning about wax and wicks. Her grandmother had once shown her how to light a birthday candle before it became illegal. She remembered how it made her feel. Warm, seen, loved. So one night she went to her grandmother's cupboard, found a tiny stub of wax, and sneaked to the edge of the city where the towers didn't shine. There, she struck a match for the first time. The candle flickered, Just once, she cried when it held. Sat with it in silence for an hour. No sound, no screen, just the sound of being alive. They were learning how to carry light into the future. A new kind of student among the many new students was a boy named Keel. He held a candle in one hand and a small solar light in the other. "This," he said, holding up the candle, "reminds you to listen." He then raised the solar light. "This reminds you to grow." "Keep both," he told them. "Never choose one. To remember what each one asks of you." And in the eyes of his students, something shined, not brightness. Glow. He came from the city of Laritha, a place so modern it had no shadows. But slowly, something changed. One evening, he sat beside the memorial flame, the one Elric had left behind. He watched its movement. He listened to its soft hiss. And for the first time in his life, he felt quiet inside. The next morning, he approached Master Lena. "I want to understand this," he said, "not just how." Every surface glowed. Every home had auto-light walls. The sky was never dark. There they built a fire from scratch. "Flame," Lena said, "is not loyal. It leaves if you stop feeding it. It dies if you don't protect it. But if you care for it becomes your friend." Keel asked, "Why not just use a lamp that never dies?" Lena smiled. "Because when something can die, it makes you pay attention. That's what fire does. It teaches you to care." They sat beside the fire as the sun set behind the trees. For the first time, Keel didn't want to rush back. Keel had never seen real fire until the day he arrived at Elderwood. He hated it at first. It flickers too much," he said. "It's not stable. It's wild." But Master Thomel only smiled and said, "That's the point." Fire lessons in his first month, Keel burned his sleeve, knocked over a candle, and nearly cried when he couldn't get flint to spark. The lesson of impermanence, Master Lena took Keel into the old woods, to a small cabin where Marta had once lived. Voices from the cities back in the 7 cities, debates were stirring again. Some politicians called the torchbearers romantics. Others called them essential. The secret flame in Voltanus, a girl named Rivi, read about the ban in silence. Months later, a small box arrived at Elderwood. Children of the glow back at the school, Keel stood before his class. It was his turn to teach. A candle for the world. By the end of the year, the school began a new tradition. The end. So how do you like this story? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be looking through them. This is an epic fantasy story about remembering. That sounds important. It's because it is. It's about how sometimes we need to get lost before we can find our way. And sometimes we need darkness to see how bright we can shine. And now, without further ado, let's dive right into the first chapter of The Flickering Divide. The world was now split into glow zones and shadow sanctuaries. Glow zones were mega-sized, sky-hung with screens. Roads that glowed from beneath. People whose lives ticked in digital pulses. Fire was banned, darkness erased. Shadow sanctuaries were small villages, mountain towns, or hidden corners where fire still lived. When he'd been little, Master Thomel had taken him to the Ash Vault, a cavern buried deep beneath Elderwood. Seeking the peace of the shadows, the council wanted to seal the borders of Elderwood, cut off from the world. "You are ancient. What use are you?" "More than you think," he said, inclining his head towards the sun. "Where do you store your precious light? Have you considered the power of shadow?" The woman hesitated, glancing at the darkening sky. Most of the council believed that was their best option, but not Master Thomel. As the gate clanged open, he stepped forward. "I will go with you," he told the stunned villagers. Around them, the sky bloomed with stars. As the people of Nexera gazed at the sky in awe, Master Thomel spoke. "I thought you might be here," she said, turning. "Why? I wanted to show you something." He led her to the edge of a clearing. In the distance, a campfire crackled between the trees. "It's time to go," she said abruptly. "What? Your gifts are too bright? Our people need the quiet of darkness?" "Foolishness," she scoffed. "You are clinging to a dying way of life. Come with me and let us build a new future together." "Then build it without us," he said, stepping back. "You misunderstand," she said sharply. "The Luma Directive wants to help you, to share our light with you. Why won't you let us?" "Because," he whispered, looking down at the fire, "some things are better seen in the dark." Her face hardened. "Very well," she said. "If you will not accept our gift, then we will take it back." "We have something for you," she said, motioning to a large truck lumbering toward them. The people of Nyxera had returned. They piled out of the truck, carrying strange devices that glowed with an eerie light. "What are these?" Keel asked, stepping back. "These are lanterns," Lena said proudly. "Each one can light an entire room. They run on pure energy, no fire necessary. And yet they cast no shadow," Keel noted, watching a child wave a lantern in front of his face. "They are perfect," she said, extending a hand to him. "Take them. Let your people see the light." "What is this?" she asked suspiciously. "A story," he replied. "For 20 years, you have chased artificial light. But there is power in the dark. You need only know how to listen." The flames rose, a group emerged from the trees. They sat in a circle, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. They were old and young, male and female. And as Keel joined them, he saw a spark of recognition on Lena's face. "Stories used to be shared like this," he said softly, "with a fire between us and the darkness, with tales that connected us to our past and to each other." She remained silent, mesmerized by the flickering light. "Our ancestors used to tell these stories before the fade," a girl whispered. "Before what?" Lena prompted, turning to her. "The fade," the girl repeated. "When the world went dark." She looked at the fire, her eyes shining. "I heard stories of it today for the first time. I'm glad you came, Lena. Maybe we can help each other remember." "Master Thomel," she said, her voice distorted by the voxelizer. "You have something that belongs to us." They stared at the stars and told stories and felt the soft caress of moonlight on their skin. But the directive wasn't watching. They were waiting. And what would that be? The right to light? The right to progress? "Progress," he repeated. "At what cost?" "You have forgotten what it means to be human. You mistake progress for brightness. We do not seek to harm you, nor to steal anything. We only wish to help." "Help." He threw back his head and laughed, "by stripping away everything that makes us us." She did not respond. "If you are truly here to help," he continued, "teach us how. You have nothing to fear." "I am Master Thomel of Elderwood. I come to offer my services." There, surrounded by flickering flames, he'd told him the history of their people, how they'd preserved stories and songs and teachings after the world had forgotten, how they kept the memories of those who came after them in mind. It's the quiet kind of darkness. The second kind is louder. It's filled with blinding lights and buzzing screens and a silence so deep it drowns thought. The Luma Directive had been monitoring Elderwood for months, cataloging its activity, waiting for the right moment to strike. Now they decided it was time to act. It's the darkness of forgetting. The road fell silent as the realization dawned on them. They'd spent so much time chasing light that they'd forgotten how to sit with darkness. They taught the wisdom of shadows and the wonder of light. Master Thomel was the oldest of the elders, his hair white as ash, his eyes pools of oil lamp gold. He understood the fragility of balance. He felt the day coming when the two worlds would collide. In the end, it hadn't been war or famine or plague that ended the world, but forgetting. A convoy of vehicles crawled up the path to Elderwood. A speaker crackled, demanding entry. "We're from the Luma Directive. Open the gate, slow walkers, and allow us passage." Keel pressed his forehead against the cool wood of the gate. Through a narrow crack, he saw armored figures with glowing helms and voices like grinding gears. "We don't want any trouble," a young woman whispered beside him. Keel shook his head. This was what he'd been waiting for. But the people who had once laughed at candles were beginning to ask questions. They wondered what life had been like when the sun was the only light and the moon the only screen. Their children wondered what stories had been like without pictures. So they turned to the quietest places, the ones where the old ways still lived. One of the few places that stood peacefully in the balance was Elderwood. Its people taught the value of fire and water, earth and air. When Keel turned 17, that day arrived. As master counselor, it was Keel's duty to keep their traditions alive. But the world was changing. More and more people were leaving the glow zones. The leader of the convoy, a woman named Lena, regarded him coldly. When the sun sets over a forest, the stars hum and the wind whispers stories through the trees. The elders guided them to a clearing where the sun sank behind the hills. Keel watched the villagers return to Nyxera. The next day, word spread of their encounter with the Shadow Keepers, a name given to the people of Elderwood. A sleek drone hovered outside his window. He saw Lena staring at him, her expression unreadable behind her helmet. Lena was gone before he finished speaking. That night, while everyone slept, Keel slipped out of his hut. He found Lena on the edge of the forest. He gathered wood and coaxed the dying embers into a bonfire. Weeks passed. Keel helped the people of Nexus rediscover the simple joys of darkness. One day, Lena found Keel tending a vegetable patch. But as he looked at the lifeless orbs, he shook his head. As she turned to leave, he knew the shadow was falling. This is a tale of loss, of hope, and of the quiet revolution that happens when one kid decides to sit beneath a core tower and light a candle. When the core towers rose, our protagonist Keel was 12 years old. He watched them build from his rooftop garden. As each tower reached higher, they blotted out the stars. When he was 16, Keel heard rumors that someone was hiding in the forest outside Elderwood, living off the land and remembering what the stars looked like. Keel thought he was crazy. The only way to survive was with the core. This moment of remembering this quiet strength was contagious. When Keel lit that candle, he didn't just defy the core, he redefined hope. Now, at 87 years old, his flame nearly extinguished, he realized his purpose. He had to teach others how to remember. In Volta, a teacher wrote about reading stories by candlelight. Now, she'd been training hard, studying everything she could about fire, but something was missing. She was a good firekeeper, but she couldn't light a candle. For the first time in its history, the core tower dimmed for exactly 7 minutes. No alarms, no announcements, just darkness. People looked up, and for the second time in 2 decades, they saw the stars. Some clapped, some sang, some just cried. In deep underground beneath the tower's roots, a tiny candle flickered. In some cities, candlelight became part of architecture again. Quiet zones were built not because they were trendy, but because they were needed. The world didn't abandon wires, but it reclaimed its glow. No longer flame versus light, but flame alongside light. In homes, a candle flickered on dinner tables. In trains, a child held a story lantern. In towers, a single flame stood on the highest floor, flickering, honest, alive, still waiting. He carried a lantern carved with the words, "He who lights a flame remembers twice, once for himself and once for the world." No one knew his name. But those who saw him swore the flame in his lantern never flickered, even in the strongest wind. And when they watched him disappear into the night, they whispered, "Elric has returned." She visited the ruins of a lantern temple now buried beneath a towering, glowing mall. She found a cracked stone, a remnant of an ancient fire circle. And there, as she ran her fingers over the cold stone, she felt a spark ignite within her. She closed her eyes, focused on the warmth spreading through her chest. And when she opened them again, she carefully struck a match. The wick caught fire. She watched as the flame grew taller, steadier. She whispered, "Elric, if you're out there, I'm still carrying it." And in that moment, she knew she was ready. In Nyxera, a mother wrote about finding comfort in the soft glow of a hidden flame. They didn't know what lay ahead, but they knew they weren't alone. Across the land, a silent revolution was taking shape. But his eyes, like Elric's, still burned. "We once thought fire was a weapon, then we thought it was a tool. But the truth is, fire is a mirror. It shows us what we truly are," he said, gazing into the flame. "We can be wild, we can be warm, we can destroy, but we can also gather. Around fire, we remember we are human." Then he looked at Rivi, now his apprentice. "Your turn." These letters weren't just reports. They were acts of courage. People began to change. They worked slower, laughed more, listened longer, slept better, and they passed it on. One by one, the light changed. They were acts of resistance. And when Master Thomel pinned them to the walls of the Hall of Flame, they became proof that this movement was more than just a protest. It was a lifeline. It gave them power, heat, light, and most importantly, hope for the future. Among them was Rivi, a girl of 11 who came from Volta, where her father was one of the few wire workers left. The Luma Directive, a group of influential citizens loyal to the core, labeled them extremists and began to crack down. Soon, handmade candles were banned. Open flames were monitored. Even whispers were spied upon. But the members of the council were prepared. They went underground, moving from place to place, passing messages through secret tunnels and hollowed-out books. And as they traveled, they taught others how to light a candle, how to find strength in silence. Her father had taught her the old ways, how to feel the thrum of the circuits, how to read the patterns and harness their power. But what he couldn't teach her was how to light a candle. She'd seen them before, of course, these mystical objects from a bygone era, but she'd never held one, let alone lit one. Under Thommel's guidance, Revi took her first tentative steps into the world of fire. While other kids her age dreamed of exploring Volta's sparkling malls, Revi dreamed of wandering the silent halls of her city's abandoned library. She imagined the feel of cool stone beneath her fingertips and the smell of aged paper filling her lungs. Hope that one day it would reach beyond their solar system, beyond their galaxy. Hope that one day they would have answers. When Keel was 24, the day finally came. They received a message from the ancestors through the very core towers themselves. Others said he was silenced by the Glow Guard, the enforcers of the core. But down in the street below the tower, a single candle still burned beneath a cracked window. It flickered in the wind, and sometimes it seemed to wink. Buried in soil and shielded by roots, it continued to flicker, feeding not on wax, but on remembrance. And soon what was once a single glow became a movement. From coast to coast, across cities and fields, whispers passed like wind. Have you seen the stars again? I sat with a candle and ... I felt something. My child asked what fire smells like. The return of night had begun, not as fear, but as freedom. All over the world, people cheered. They marveled. Keel stared up at the tower nearest him, but all he felt was fear. After a lifetime of looking at light, he could barely see. And the faces around him, the faces of his friends, family, neighbors, they were all ecstatic. They flocked to the town center to watch the official broadcast. But Keel sat alone in his room, covering his eyes. Then he did something stupid. He snuck into the nearby core tower and climbed up, until he reached the top. There, above the city, hidden among the antennas and solar panels, he sat down and waited. And when the sky went dark, Keel uncovered his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he saw the stars. It was beautiful. But Keel wanted to see more, so he started a fire. It crackled and popped, and as he sat watching the flames dance, he felt something. It wasn't fear. It wasn't awe. It was peace. The next day, Keel was missing. Some said he escaped to the wilderness. As Master Thommel, one of the oldest surviving torchbearers, gazed at the flickering flame, he realized something profound. So he called the best of the best to Elderwood, the heart of the flameless wilderness. Meanwhile, as the Council of Light and Shadow grew, so did the danger. In Halworth, a doctor wrote about treating patients with open flames. But while the movement grew, Rivi was struggling. One by one, the elders passed on their knowledge, ensuring that the torch of memory would continue to burn. Soon after, things changed. In Nexira, something unthinkable happened. One day, Master Thommel sat with his students beside the central flame. His hair was white now, his hands trembled. And so the lessons continued, passing from one generation to the next. By the end of the year, something remarkable happened. And somewhere far away, in a valley untouched by maps, a young boy walked the path of stars. Hello, everybody. So we have come to the end of Ember in the Ashes, at least for now. So let me explain. First off, this video right here is the ending of the young adult fantasy series, Ember in the Ashes, by Sabaa Tahir. So I understand if you don't want to watch all of it. But I wanted to make this whole thing one big epic adventure. Also, it's kind of meant to be like a movie trailer too, so I don't know, what do you think? If you haven't read these books yet, stop what you're doing and go do that. The smoke curled into shapes. Before her, a vision appeared. She saw a boy striking flint in a dark hut, a girl lighting a candle by a cracked city wall, Thommel planting fire under snow in cities like Galanth and Boros. Entire neighborhoods were being replaced with controlled glow towers. Voice implants were being tested on children. Fire was once again declared primitive. People walked fast, spoke less, and never looked up. Silence didn't exist there, nor did stars. She found shelter in the underground tunnels, dark and dusty, but untouched by glow systems. She was lighting a candle beneath the massive sculpture of the Argenex Aja monument to control. She simply held the flame in her hand. When the guards demanded she put it out, she looked at them and said, "Greater than I will. But only after you remember your first nightlight, the one your mother lit." The guards didn't reply. One of them cried. They arrested her, but not before one whispered, "Greater than thank you." And there she lit her candle for the first time. It shone not brightly but bravely. No words, just a girl and a candle. But that was all it took. People stopped what they were doing. The next day, they released her quietly. Too many people were watching. They looked at their rooms, so full of light, but so cold, and they lit candles, millions of them. What did you think? And it was a while between videos, but I'm glad to be back. Hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe for more content. Bye. By sunrise, the stars had returned not to the sky, but to the windows of people's homes. In the capital of Argenex, an announcement was made. Greater than the era of quiet is over, but people began searching. Not for rebellion, not for chaos, for memory. Rivi moved like a whisper, lighting candles in alleyways, on park benches, and elevator shafts. She painted old fire symbols behind electric posters. Slowly, the city changed. People paused, laughed, listened. Even the guards began to hesitate. The silence was returning. The age of total light has begun. The Council of Light and Shadow met that same night. Rivi stood before them. "I want to go to Argenex," she said. The room fell silent. "That's suicide," one elder whispered. "It's the most controlled city in the world." "I know," Rivi said. "That's why it needs a story." Her own hands, shaking the first time she dared to carry a living flame. And then she saw him. Elric, older than she'd imagined, standing beneath stars. A lantern in one hand, silence in the other. He looked at her not as a stranger, but as someone waiting. Then he spoke. "Also, if you are new to my channel, welcome here. You've lit the flame. You've carried it far. But now, it must speak. Not just in homes and quiet places, but in the heart of power. The next battle is not against the wire or the light or even forgetting. It's against noise." Rivi listened, breathless. Flame is not silent. It whispers. And in that whisper is truth. Now go where silence is forbidden. Go where fire has never been allowed. Go not to burn, but to glow. And with that, the vision faded. She was back in Elderwood, but she was no longer the same. The great oak tree behind the school shed its golden leaves gently over the fire circle. Autumn had arrived, and with it, a strange stillness. Rivi stood alone before the eternal flame, a lantern in her hand and questions in her heart. She practiced lighting candles in high winds. She memorized every poem Elric ever wrote. She carried a single flame from the ash vault sealed in a reinforced glass globe. This would be the most important light of her life. Before she left, Master Thomel gave her Elric's old satchel. Inside was a letter. "Greater than dear bearer, if you're reading this, it means the flame still lives. That is enough. Don't speak loudly. Speak truly. People don't need to hear you. They need to feel you. And remember, flame doesn't fight darkness. It invites it to sit down." Rivi smiled, tucked the letter away, and set out into the night. It had been a full year since the core tower dimmed. Whispers of change had spread, and yet something felt unfinished. God. That morning, as she leaned toward the fire, she whispered, "Greater than what comes next." The flame answered not with words, but with a story. We talk about books, writing, and occasionally just random stuff. So if you like any of that, then please stay around. Now, because this is an adaptation, it's kind of long. It's like really, really long. Okay, so as you can see, I've chosen to edit this to look like an actual movie trailer. So there's lots of fast-moving text. There's sound effects, there's music, all that good stuff. And I highly recommend that you watch this with either subtitles turned on or read the transcript, which is available somewhere. But anyway, before we get into this, I would just like to say that I was very inspired by other fan works when making this. There is actually a lot of people who have created movies based on these books, and they amazing. So if you want to check those out, I'll leave some links down below. Also, credit for the cover art goes to an artist. They're amazing. Please go check out their work. Now let's get into it. Elderwood was quiet that morning. The sky was overcast, clouds heavy and thoughtful. As she stared into the fire, The world around her began to blur. Not with fear, but with memory. The flickering of the flame became motion. In the heart of the fire, Elric's voice echoed soft, as wind through leaves, strong as a story told in the dark. Days later, messengers arrived with warnings. The Luma directive was expanding again, this time deeper, faster, more aggressively than before. For 7 days, Rivi trained. Arginex was unlike anything she had seen. The streets buzzed. The towers blinked endlessly. Music blared from unseen speakers. Cameras tracked every face. Word spread faster than she expected. A candle had been lit in Arginex. No one knew who. No one knew where. Eventually they found her. That night, someone posted a photo of Rivi's flame beneath the eye. It spread across the world in hours. From her holding cell, Rivi was allowed to write one message. She chose just 7 words. Greater than fire does not die. It remembers you. Okay, so yeah, that was the ending of Ember in the Ashes. A while ago, we asked you, what do you want to see more of in our stories? You asked us to bring more stories about love, friendship, and family. So today, I'm thrilled to share a special project with you. A story that's been in the works for a while. Oh yeah, she likes starting fires a lot. And this is Rio. He's about 8, and he's a bit of a scaredy cat. Ember finds that pretty funny, though. Now, these 2 best friends are going to go on quite the adventure together, so if you want to watch their story, click here. You've lit the flame. You've carried it far. But now it must speak. Not just in homes and quiet places, but in the heart of power. The next battle is not against the wire, or the light, or even forgetting. It's against noise. Rivi listened, breathless. Flame is not silent. It whispers. And in that whisper is truth. A candle had been lit in Arginex. No one knew who. No one knew where. But people began searching. Not for rebellion. Not for chaos. She didn't run. She simply held the flame in her hand. When the guards demanded she put it out, she looked at them and said, I will, but only after you remember your first nightlight, the one your mother lit. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. I know if you want to see more stories like this, hit that like button. Now, we've got a couple of announcements that I know you'll be excited for. The first is that we're planning on releasing weekly animated shorts right here on this channel. These shorts will take you to all kinds of magical places and introduce you to tons of interesting characters. And the second announcement is that we're looking for more awesome writers to join our team. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, send us a message with a link to your work and tell us why you want to be part of our team. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. The guards didn't reply. One of them cried. They arrested Herb, but not before one whispered, thank you. For memory. Rivi moved like a whisper, lighting candles in alleyways, on park benches, in elevator shafts. But that was all it took. People stopped what they were doing. They looked at their rooms, so full of light, but so cold, and they lit candles. Millions of them. By sunrise, the stars had returned not to the sky, but to the windows of people's homes. She painted old fire symbols behind electric posters. And slowly, the city changed. People paused, laughed, listened. Even the guards began to hesitate. The silence was returning. Now go where silence is forbidden. Go where fire has never been allowed. Go not to burn, but to glow. And with that, the vision faded. She was back in Elderwood, but she was no longer the same. And if you like this story, we'll have more just like it coming soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The next day, they released her quietly. Too many people were watching. The Luma directive was expanding again, this time deeper, faster, more aggressively than before. She memorized every poem Elric ever wrote. She carried a single flame from the ash vaults, sealed in a reinforced glass globe. People walked fast, spoke less, and never looked up. Silence didn't exist there, nor did stars. Rivi found shelter in the underground tunnels, dark and dusty, but untouched by glow systems. And there, she lit her candle for the first time. Shone not brightly, but bravely. This would be the most important light of her life. Before she left, Master Thomel gave her Elric's old satchel. Inside was a letter. Dear Bear, if you're reading this, it means the flame still lives. That is enough. Don't speak loudly. Speak truly. People don't need to hear you. They need to feel you. Remember, flame doesn't fight darkness. It invites it to sit down. Rivi smiled, tucked the letter away, and set out into the night. In cities like Galanth and Boros, entire neighborhoods were being replaced with controlled glow towers. Voice implants were being tested on children. Fire was once again declared primitive. In the capital of Arginex, an announcement was made. The era of quiet is over. The age of total light has begun. The Council of Light and Shadow met that same night. Rivi stood before them. "I want to go to Arginex," she said. The room fell silent. "That's suicide," one elder whispered. "It's the most controlled city in the world, I know," Rivi said. "That's why it needs a story." Today's adventure is called The Whisper and the Flame, and it takes place in the world of Ember, a world which we are developing into an animated series. We also have another story ready to go for today, so let me introduce you to two new friends. This is Ember. She's 12 years old and she loves two things: writing songs and starting fires. But let's get started on today's story. Elderwood was quiet that morning. The sky was overcast, clouds heavy and thoughtful. The great oak tree behind the school shed its golden leaves gently over the fire circle, not with fear, but with memory. The flickering of the flame became motion. Smoke curled into shapes, and before her, a vision appeared. She saw a boy striking flint in a dark hut, a girl lighting a candle by a cracked city wall, Thomel planting fire under snow. Her own hands, shaking the first time she dared to carry a living flame, and then she saw him. Elric, older than she'd imagined, standing beneath stars, lantern in one hand, silence in the other. He looked at her not as a stranger, but as someone waiting. Then he spoke. Autumn had arrived, and with it, a strange stillness. Rivi stood alone before the eternal flame, a lantern in her hand, and questions in her heart. It had been a full year since the core tower dimmed. Whispers of change had spread, and yet something felt unfinished. That morning, as she leaned toward the fire, she whispered, "What comes next?" The flame answered, not with words, but with a story. As she stared into the fire, the world around her began to blur. In the heart of the fire, Elric's voice echoed soft, as wind through leaves, strong as a story told in the dark. Days later, messengers arrived with warnings. For 7 days, Rivi trained. She practiced lighting candles in high winds. Arginine was unlike anything she had seen. The streets buzzed. The towers blinked endlessly. Music blared from unseen speakers. Cameras tracked every face. Word spread faster than she expected. Eventually they found her. She was lighting a candle beneath the massive sculpture of the Arginex Eye Monument to Control. That night, someone posted a photo of Rivi's flame beneath the eye. It spread across the world in hours. It's no words, just a girl and a candle. From her holding cell, Rivi was allowed to write one message. She chose just 7 words. Fire does not die. It remembers you. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's story.